there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you 4 different cards that you can make with a layering circle stamp from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com, and don't forget to check out the video description for links to everything that I used, as well as a coupon code for your next order over at pegstamps.com. So these cards kind of started because I wanted to play and see what I could do with some stuff I already had. So I started off by taking a compass and a very sharp pencil, and I started to draw arcs. So I poked the pointy end of the compass in the corner of my paper because I'll have to trim it down when I layer it on a card base. I just have a quarter sheet of cardstock here, and I started making arcs out from that corner. And that's going to give me a little template for stamping my circles down on. Now, you can erase your pencil mark right through the ink when you're all done stamping. I know you can't really see it that well from my video there because I wanted the lines to be really light, but I'll warn you that if you use a really sharp, hard pencil like I did, you might actually dent the paper, and then when you go to stamp your bigger circles, you might see a little line from where you kind of dented the paper a little bit. So just kind of be careful about that. I lined all my ink pads up in rainbow order so it would be really simple for me to just grab a circle and start stamping. I also put a piece of scrap paper underneath my white cardstock so that I could stamp off the edge, and I wouldn't get my black stamping mat all inky, because it can be hard to see where the ink is, and then you get it on the back of your card or even the front of your card when you went to do some other stamping. And I love the way this looks. I think it's cheerful to kind of have your colors going in a rainbow gradation like that. There you can see on the purple how I mentioned about that pencil mark kind of denting the paper. You can kind of see that line through there. And just as you need other colors, just wipe off your stamps and keep on going. I'm using Memento inks for the most part. Any dye-based ink is going to be nice and vibrant for you. Now, I noticed that I didn't have a tiny stamp and I wanted one more size, so I grabbed a brand new pencil and I used that as a stamp, and I'm just going to keep that pencil in with my layering circle stamp so that I have that extra circle to work with. Isn't that cute and cheerful? To finish off my card, all I did was adhere that panel I stamped to a black mat, which was about 1/8 of an inch on all sides, larger, and then I just adhered that onto a white card base, and I die cut the word thanks from some black cardstock, and I've had this die for like a decade. It's an old Cuttlebug one, but it still is perfectly fine to use. And if you get dies that are really versatile like that, you're not going to be destashing them in a year. You're going to keep using them. Just like stamp sets that are versatile, like these circles. These are going to be in style forever because they're circles, and circles don't go out of style. So think about that when you're building your stash, and make sure you get truly versatile stuff that will be fun to reuse year after year and come up with new ideas for year after year. For this next card, you're going to take another quarter sheet of cardstock and randomly stamp your polka dots all over the background. Make sure you have it stamped really dense because you want kind of a confetti effect here. This background is going to show through some die cuts. So what I did was I cut the word hello twice, once out of black cardstock normally, then out of white cardstock with a shadow applied. There I could stack them up and be able to see the word hello, see the colors in behind, but also have that black shadow underneath. Now you can actually cut this background in half and make a couple cards with it if you like. I glued my hellos together and then took a paper piercing tool and poked a hole in each corner and then applied random brads in each corner. I just wanted to accent and bring about that confetti feeling again, and I thought little brads look like pieces of confetti. Then I applied a generous amount of foam tape to the back. That way I'd be able to trap my confetti layer and adhere the whole thing down to a brightly colored card base. And at that point I thought my card was done, but I was a little bothered with how blank the bottom of the card looked. My first instinct was to look through my stamps and see if I had a sentiment that would work there, but the focal point of this card was a sentiment, and I didn't want to detract from that. So I took some of the leftover confetti background and cut a strip and then mounted it on a piece of black cardstock that was a scrap I had laying on my table and adhered that down. And I really think that worked to balance the design, make the most of my leftovers, and also just get a little more color on that card. This was an idea that didn't quite make it into a finished card, but it inspired another card, and I think that it's important when you are really trying to dig deep and seeing what your supplies can do, that you just play and have fun without putting the pressure on yourself to create a full card. So I wanted the look of bubbles. So what I did was I used my circles, and I used kind of colors that you would see reflected in bubbles, such as pinks and teal and aqua and blues. And I would stamp them a few times. Sometimes I would just get the edges in the ink, and I filled up a background that way, and I made some cute bubbles. I was going to stamp fish and seahorses with it, but it didn't turn out very well. But then I thought, what about stamping on black and using my pearlescent chalks? That would really look like bubbles because bubbles are iridescent. So I'm using my circles, I just cleaned them up, and I'm using clear Versamark ink. You could use any clear ink or glycerin to do this. And I just randomly stamped my bubbles all over the background. Then I simply rubbed some pearlescent chalks over the bubbles to make them kind of pop out from the background. I'm using Pebbles chalk, which is an inexpensive craft chalk that's shimmery. You could also use shimmery eyeshadow or Pearlex powder. Pearlex or Perfect Pearls would give you a much shinier effect, where the chalks give you a more subtle effect. And the pearlescent chalks here are very similar to eyeshadow, so use that if that's all you have. After you have all the chalk applied, grab a clean dry tissue and simply rub over the background, and that's going to lock the chalk in place so it doesn't smudge on anybody's hands, and it just really makes it stick to that ink and gives you that beautiful bubbly effect. Looks like champagne. To finish this card, I simply adhered it down to a silver card base from one of my massive overbuying card base escapades a couple of years ago. Still using those up, but now that I'm using them up a lot, I'm really loving them, which is just awful. I'm gonna have to buy more. And I just really like that little hint of shine that you got on the edge. If you got any fingerprints, just go ahead and smoosh them away with a tissue. And then I just glued down the letters left over from the confetti card that I had made. I do kind of feel like maybe this card could use a little something. So if you have any suggestions of what I could add to this card to embellish it further, please let me know in the comments below, because I just feel like it might need a little extra punch. But I think it's pretty cute for using up some leftovers. This last card idea is my favorite of the batch. I love the soft colors. It would be perfect for a bridal shower or a baby shower, either a boy or a girl. I just love that it is springy too and light and fresh. So I started off with my layering circles and used my softest shades of dye ink that I had. So I used lavender and a soft teal and a sky blue and a light moss color, and I just filled the background as much as I could with my circles. Now, because I knew I was going to stamp on top of it, I kept these circles really, really light. Then with more intense shades, I used small dragonfly stamps to kind of fill in the design. I used a dark purple, I used a dark like kind of magenta purple color, and a dark blue, and filled in my background. I selected a pale lavender card base from the massive batch of card bases that I still have on hand, and also a scrap of just kind of like buttery yellow cardstock, and I glued the yellow cardstock to the back of the white paper I just stamped. Now, you want a lot of adhesive here, because basically what I'm doing is making a double-sided paper. So if you had a pattern paper that you wanted to stamp on the back side of, you could skip this step. You'd already have something pretty on the back side. Now, I wanted to try this technique called a collar card, and it's inspired because it looks like a men's shirt collar, like a button-down collar, and you do that by cutting a slit on the side of your paper, either on double-sided paper or paper you've backed with a pretty color like I did, and then you fold down the corners and button them down with brads. It's such a pretty dimensional look, and I think it's really nice for this card. Then I just centered this up on my card base with some strong double-sided adhesive, and I cut the layering piece so that it would be a 1/4 inch smaller than the card, so I'd have a nice little border all the way around. But with this card, you could make your layering piece flush with the size of your card base, since you are going to be revealing that color underneath. I just personally like a border, but that's completely up to you. Then I finished this card off by adhering down some plastic dragonfly charms that I had purchased about 6 months ago on clearance. I hope this video sparked some new ways for you to use your supplies. I think it's fun to sit down with a bunch of things and just play and see what happens. It's never time wasted, because even if something doesn't turn out the way you wanted, you've still learned something, and it will spark ideas to go on to other projects. If you want to find any of the products I used today, I'll have them linked in the video description. I want to thank our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com. Don't forget the coupon code in the video description. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.